third piece about bringing the experience home, you guys will write blog posts or put together blog posts that Esther is going to help us get published in different places, and that we're going to run on our blog. But there's just this whole aspect of sharing, through your social media and through doing community presentations. And every indication that we've seen in our years of doing this work is that change happens at the grassroots level, and it happens because people trust the messenger. That when you come back share your experiences, then it's better than me sharing it with your family or your friends or at your universities or in your public library, because they know you and they trust you and they're interested in what you have to say. You're not an outsider coming in and trying to say something that might be challenging. Our summer service internship program is different than other types of overseas internships or study abroad programs, in that, as I said, and as you guys know, we're focused on the Muslim world specifically. There's so many, the top 10 study abroad destinations are in the UK. Less than 3% of Americans who study abroad in a Muslim majority country, and so it's special in terms of what it is that you're doing. We devote an incredible amount of energy to having an impact on the ground. Equally, we support you and your professional and your personal development, but our first step is to make sure that our partners are benefiting from this. We put together what's called a scope of work, which we'll talk about later down the road in terms of the impact that you'll have, in addition to that individual work plan that we'll put together with each one of you. And then, as I was saying, this doesn't end overseas. That we, while you have no binding commitments to us, like we don't ask for blood or kidney or anything like that, we do hope to get into your bloodstream, and that you will, when you see opportunities, that you will take them in terms of casual conversations with people who are saying things that are considered hateful by other standards, or the chances to give presentations and to put yourself forward as somebody who has had an experience and it's an experience worth sharing. This is the third year that we're running this program in Indonesia with Gajah Mada University. We're really happy to resume the program again this year. We didn't run it last year because we didn't have a large enough group that wanted to go and to serve with these partners, so we're very happy to have a group of 6. I'm thrilled that I'm going to get a chance to go to Indonesia and I'll arrive a few days before you guys arrive, and I will help our partners in country do their in-country orientation with you. I'll be there for the first few days that you're there, and then I will go home, and you guys will stay there for about 5.5 to 6 weeks to do our program. A few key people that are involved in our program. You guys have all been in touch with Kathleen. And Esther, do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself and say where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm from Illinois. I go to the University of Illinois. I'm here this summer to intern in DC, and I'm lucky enough to be on the AUA team stateside. And what I'll be doing this summer is a lot of social media with AUA, and taking the blogs that you guys write and editing them, and helping to refine them so we can send them to different publications to get published.
Great, and we're so happy to have Esther with us on our team this summer. In Indonesia, there are at least 5, if not 6, people that are going to be really important to you guys. You have 2 country coordinators. Their names are Ayu and Ampy, A-M-P-Y. And Ayu has been our country coordinator for a few years, and she's a lecturer at Gajah Mada University in the International Studies, International Relations Department. And then our Indonesia program is a little bit different than our other programs, in that they had a really good idea a few years back to set up a buddy system for our volunteers who are going to be in country. And buddy system sounds very kindergarten-esque, but it's a great system, and it's not like kindergarten. It's we've got 3 master's students who are effectively going to be your buddies, and will help you to figure out how to get around town, can do translation for you at different times or interpretation for you. Some of them will visit your internships. They'll take you around on your different group trips, and they're just go-to resources that we're just thrilled that they volunteer to do this because they just support the program and they're happy to be a part of it. And their names are Bunga, Fadlan, and Ajeng, which I haven't met any. All three of them are new for this year. They all come really well recommended. I haven't met any of them yet. I'm looking forward to meeting them. And as Kathleen points out, all of them are in your manuals. Have you guys had a chance to look through your manuals extensively or skim?
Yeah, I skimmed it.
You skimmed it? Okay. So hopefully you have a chance to look at it a little bit more closely as we get into the orientation now. So before we get into our discussion, I'd like each one of you to take a minute and introduce yourself to the group. And what I'd love to hear in your introduction is who you are, where you're from, where you go to school, and a goal that you have for the summer with your internship and as serving as an unofficial ambassador. Caroline, why don't you go first?
Okay. Hi, my name is Caroline Jeter. I'm from Mill Valley, California, which is San Francisco Bay Area. And I go to school at Notre Dame Dunmore University, located in San Mateo, California, and I'm in the multiple subject credential. So I just started my first semester of that program. And my goal for summer, I'm going to be interning, teaching English as a second language to the middle school and high school students at Mollymont Girls School. And my goal while I'm doing my internship is really kind of immerse myself in the culture and the language and practice and learn everything I can. And talking to my students and just getting immersed with the whole culture of Indonesia, I think is really important to me.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. Grace, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Grace. I'm from New Jersey, Central Jersey, and I go to Washington College, which is in Maryland, the Eastern Shore. I just finished my freshman year, and I study international studies. That's my declared major. And this summer, I'll be working with Caroline at the Mollymont Girls School. And my goal is just to learn about the different culture and the people. I've never been to Asia or Africa or any of the. I've only been to Europe, so this is a really new experience for me. So I just want to learn as much as I can and hopefully teach them a lot of good things. So yeah.
Good.
My name is Isabel Perez. I'm from Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, in a little suburb. I go to Queen's University of Charlotte in North Carolina, and I'm a political science major. I just finished my sophomore year, and I'm going to be interning at PKBI. And a goal for the summer is to just learn absolutely everything I can about the culture and the organization and the country so I can help convey that in the presentations I'll be doing when I get back to my parish.
That's great. Kathleen, I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself. Would you like to introduce yourself?
And I think I've met most of you, or at least spoken with all of you on the phone. I'm Kathleen. I'm the program coordinator at AUA. So as I said, I've gotten to know many of you already. A bit about my background. I graduated from Lehigh University. I studied international relations. After that, I was a Teach for America corps member for 2 years in Charlotte, hence why I knew about Queen's University, Isabel. One of my colleagues I taught with is married to Dr. Kelso at your school. So, yeah. So after that, I worked in education reform for a few years in New York City, and then kind of decided I wanted to get involved in, back involved in international affairs, but also keep a lot of what I learned working in education. So I went back to get my master's in Middle Eastern Studies from Harvard, and then found AUA soon after that. It's a great place for me to kind of work in a lot of the issues of education inequity that I care a lot about, while also doing a lot to promote the relationship between the United States and the Muslim world. And I'm really excited to get to know all of you better this summer and help you be as successful as possible in your internships.
Thank you. And I just would say on the coattails of that, for those of you who are teaching, Kathleen is like a bonus resource in terms of questions about the classroom. If you haven't watched the webinar she did yet on teaching in the classroom and lesson planning and classroom management, Kathleen's going to send you the links to all the skill building webinars that we did at the end of May. And I definitely recommend that one along with the other ones, but also on a one-on-one basis, if you're having challenges or if there's things that you want to discuss, that you should look to Kathleen as a resource for that as well, not just for other issues related to the program they might be grappling with. So with the introductions behind us, and it's interesting to hear all three of you spoke about citizen diplomacy goals that you want to have, and that's wonderful. This is really going to be the first of, if not a weekly conversation, more often than that, about what our goals are for this experience for you. And if you take a look at our manual, there's 4 main objectives for this program. To have an impact, to dispel stereotypes, to build mutual understanding, and then to take responsibility for safety. And we're going to do this in a 2-track basis, in that you guys will have your individual goals, within that chapeau and that framework, and you also will have your group goals. You guys will be living together. You'll be doing weekly reflections together. You'll be going to and from work together. You'll have your own assignments and your own responsibilities, but this program is designed so that you have network and that you have support. And part of that is talking about these different challenges and goals and how to reach them. All of these are in your manual. I think it's around page 11 or 12 or so, where we outlined what our 4 principles or our 4 objectives are. So for the next 20, 25 minutes or so, I'd like to go through the first 3 of those. We're going to spend the whole session talking about taking responsibility for safety. Unquestionably, that is the most important of the 4 goals, but we're going to talk about all that next week, and if there's a little bit of time, we can touch on a couple points today. But I wanted to start off with this first goal of having impact in your service. And clearly, all of you are motivated to do this. You wouldn't be going to Indonesia, other side of the world, to go. None of you have been to Indonesia before to volunteer with people that you haven't met or that you're not as familiar with. But there's you're there for a short time. It's a little bit less than 6 weeks, and there is this steep curve in terms of how is it that I can drop myself in and have as much impact as possible. And this isn't like some kind of reality TV show where we have a best intern and others get voted off of the group house because they're not performing. The whole idea is that we're helping to support each other and make each other better. And so, in that vein, I'd like to begin a conversation of how is it that you guys have begun to prepare, or what is it that you feel as if you need to do to prepare in order to have an impact in your placement? There's different stuff in terms of the citizen diplomacy, which we will get to in a few minutes, but this is purely in terms of being a good teacher, doing successful work at PKBI. How is it that you have begun to prepare, or what is it that you would like to share with others in terms of getting ready for your assignments? Caroline, would you like to start off?
Yeah, sure. I've begun to prepare by, I got a lot of reading materials on it, so I've just been reading lots of books, and I was getting books on teaching materials, resources that I'll need to help learn in the classroom, and just looking on travel websites online, and just talking to a lot of people about it, and trying to figure out the right things that I need to bring to wear and everything like that. So that's just how I've been preparing, mostly through books and reading materials right now, and looking at the manual that you guys gave us a bunch of times. So, yeah.
Good. Grace or Isabel, what are some of the things that you guys are doing? And the goal here is that as you find good resources, like Caroline, perhaps you have, that you share them with the rest of the group so that they can benefit from it as well.
Yeah.
Isabel or Grace, would one of you like to go?
Sure. I've also been doing a lot of reading online and through different books about Indonesia as a country, about Yogyakarta as a city, customs, practices, just kind of everything I can get my hands on to kind of better prepare me for being there and living there and working there. Since it is my first time abroad, I'm not really, I don't have any experience to base this on, so I'm just kind of reading everything I can get my hands on.
And is there something that has stood out to you thus far that was particularly useful or interesting?
One of my professors at school suggested looking at customs and things on Lonely Planet, I think it was called. And she's also given me a couple different resources that I haven't gotten a chance to look at yet. I just got them yesterday, but that look promising, just about working abroad, interning abroad in general.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to re-plug the skill building webinars that some of you guys joined at the end of May, and also Kathleen can put up a link to the resource page or the toolkit that we have for volunteers. I think it's actually in your manual as well, that covers a lot of these different issues as well. Grace, what about you? What are some of the things that you've been thinking about?
I haven't looked at many books about like teaching, so I should probably do that. I haven't really thought about that. But I have been looking at books about Indonesia and Yogyakarta. I actually, in the New York Times last week, there was an article about Jakarta and their government. So I've been kind of like more interested in like how their government works, because I have no idea how it works, and it's kind of complicated. So I've been trying to understand that more and just understanding their daily life, I guess. And I think that will be important to know and to have background information on. So yeah, I guess I should look more into books and stuff about teaching, because I'm not really, I don't really know much about that.
So great segue to thinking about what are the challenges that you think that you will face in doing your internships. So for you, got a couple of you guys are teaching, and Caroline, it sounds like I know you already have some experience and that you are looking at different resources there. But maybe you could start us off again with what are some of the challenges that you're thinking about, not from a living in Indonesia perspective, but from how can I be an effective teacher in the classroom, and how will this be different than what my experiences have been in the U.S.?
Okay. I guess how it'll be different. Well, this will be my first time traveling to Asia, so I think it'll be different for sure. But I think that the challenges I might face is maybe not being immersed in a whole different culture that I'm not used to. So, but just recognizing, be open and respectful about it, and asking more questions to my student to get more information about it. So I think that will be a challenge, being immersed in like a new culture where you don't know a lot about it. That you can get a lot of information from resource, but it's kind of different when you're put into the place itself. So I think that will be the challenge that I'll have.
Okay. What about others? What are some of the challenges that you're already thinking about?
I have similar challenges to Caroline. I think it'll be important to connect with the students because that's how they'll like open up to us and they'll be more comfortable with us. So just like kind of breaking that barrier and like having them be able to come to us for anything will be a challenge, and I hope that we can do that.
Yeah.
And I would say it's probably a challenge across the board, not just with students, but how does one integrate oneself into a different into a work setting and a different culture?
Mhm. And
Isabel, yeah, what do you think, Isabel?
one of the challenges I'm worried about is the language barrier. Um, just having everyone around me speak a completely different language than what I'm used to. So that's what I'm most worried about, I think.
Right, and so along those lines, you guys will be having Bahasa Indonesian classes 3 times a week for an hour, and I think that those will help, but you have to also acknowledge that you're not going to be, that's going to help from like a cultural demonstration of respect perspective rather than you're going to be having fluent conversations with people about different subjects, at the workplace. And so that's one of the things to think about is, in all of your internship placements, there's someone who speaks English, and we've got the buddy system where they'll come and help out at different times, and our country coordinators will come and visit your sites. But in an American work environment or an English-speaking work environment, you would probably ask more questions and get to a level of detail on your different questions on a normal basis. And I think in the work that you guys will be adapting to, that you'll ask your questions and you'll do your best to figure out what it is that the goal is of the activity. But then there's also going to be some space for you to take it in various routes or directions within that goal. And one of the things that's come up for volunteers that have gone to Indonesia in the past is that the culture is really quite different than our professional work culture here. Not in that they are unprofessional, but it's definitely slower, and there's a lot more ambiguity. And so it's understanding that that's okay, and that there isn't somebody who's going to tell you, all right, at 1:05 do this, at 1:45 do that, but rather you're going to get larger assignments, and that you need to drive the car on those assignments in terms of getting to the destination. That it's not just I don't think that you can count on the same hour-by-hour supervision as perhaps you might get in an internship in the United States. It's been something that's striking to me. Also with our Zanzibar program, that's a cultural difference as well. And that's part of the beauty of this is in terms of figuring out how to create these cross-cultural partnerships that don't work on your terms, but that work in general, and adapting yourself to what the situation is in that place. Let's move on to talk about dispelling stereotypes. And the three of you, when we listed off our goals, you actually, each of you spoke to citizen diplomacy related goals. I feel quite strongly that it's not too soon to begin planning on what kind of unofficial ambassador you want to be. And that you don't have to just enter into this kind of situation and be prepared to talk about everything in your life and share that with anybody who asks, but rather for you to begin thinking about the intentionality of all this. And what are the specific things that you want to share? It's okay. What are the specific things that you want to share about yourself, your family, the community you come from, the United States, political issues? If you have no interest in the presidential election, I think you're going to be out of luck because I think people are going to ask you about that. But if you have no interest in talking about political things or no interest in talking about religious things, then know that about yourself right now and be thinking about, well, how can I steer the conversation to topics that I'm really interested in? Like if I'm really interested in different forms of artistic expression or local music, then like there's a way to start off those conversations when you meet someone where there's always that introduction, and then what kind of questions do you want to ask of people so that you can start off on a conversation about local artists rather than about electing the first female president of the United States. Not that there's anything wrong with having either of these conversations, but this is your experience. You're representing something. It's up for you to define what it is that you're representing and what it is that you want to learn. So I want to put this up on your radar and just ask it as a preliminary question. Can you each say something that it is that you want to share with the people who you meet in Indonesia? And can you each say something that you would like to avoid talking about with the people who you meet in Indonesia? And why don't we start with Isabel this time, because I keep on picking on Caroline to go first.
Well, I'm a political science major, so I really enjoy talking about politics just kind of all the time. So I think that would be something I would enjoy talking about. And as someone who went to religious school growing up, I love finding out the little differences in religions and how it's treated in the public sphere and all that kind of stuff. And something I would like to avoid talking about. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. So that's why we're talking about this now and not, when I see you guys in Yogyakarta. I want you to think about it and realize where your comfort zones are and where they're not. Grace, what about you?
I definitely like talking about like politics and that kind of thing as well. Being an international studies major, so that would be kind of interesting to talk about that and get other people's perspectives. One thing that I probably wouldn't want to talk about I'm not, as far as like religion goes, I'm not the most religious person, but I'm very interested in it, and I would be more interested in listening to learning their religion, like the Muslim religion, than I would talking about it. So, yeah, I guess that's that.
So, and that's good to hear. One of the things that I recommend doing is for every question that you want to ask about politics, about religion, about music, whatever it is, think about what the answer would be and how you would say it if you were asked the exact same question back about the United States or about Catholicism, Judaism, Republican Party, just so that it's a very useful exercise to think about sharing. And one of the things that I find really sad is when our really well-meaning unofficial ambassadors go out there into the world and they don't have the words to express what it is that they want to say. And so if you think about the dialogue and conversations you're going to have, you can also think about what are the areas I need to do a little bit of research on so that I can be an informed unofficial ambassador about these different topics. Like if you want to talk about political systems and you want to learn about Indonesia's political system, what if one of your students asks you, how is it that a law is passed in the United States? And that's a useful thing to be able to explain in a very basic way. Or, can President Obama run for another electoral term and explain, why it is that he can't? Like those kinds of examples. Caroline, what do you think? Hi, Paula.
Hi, sorry about that.
Okay. Let me just take a time out. Paula, what we're doing is we're talking about our group goals, and we've already talked about having an impact, and we're talking about dispelling stereotypes, and each one of us is going through and talking about because my premise is that there's an intentionality behind all this, that there's ways to prepare for these kinds of experiences and these kinds of discussions. And so we're just going through, and each one of us is expressing what it is that we're really interested in having conversations about, and what it is that we would like to avoid having conversations about. And Caroline was just about to go, and you can go after her.
Okay.
Great. What I want to say in conversation or what I want to talk about, I'm pretty open to talking about anything. I love to talk about my family or the college I'm going to, my hometown. I actually don't really mind talking about the presidential election, but I'm still learning more things about it. So if they have more questions about it, then I may not be able to give them all the information that they need. So that might be something I might keep a little limited, or just try to give as much information as I can. That might go a little bit in the avoidance, I guess. And religion, something you guys talked about. I'm not really religious, but I always have tons of questions that I want to ask for people that are religious, because I want to know more about that. So that's where I stand on all those things.
Okay, good. Paula, do you want to go ahead, and also would you mind introducing yourself to the rest of the group, where you're from, where you go to school?
Yeah, I'm Paula. I am from New York City, but I go to the University of Delaware. I'll be a senior this year. That's pretty much me. But I also am very comfortable about talking about pretty much whatever topic. I would love to know about family dynamics and the way that just kind of how the household works, and also how Indonesians see us as Americans. I think that's something I'd really like to try to understand, because I feel like there's this huge, in America, so many Americans have this impression of the Muslim world, but I want to understand what the Muslim it's been a long day, the Muslim perception of Americans are. And so I guess I would ask them kind of questions like that if that was not super inappropriate, but
Yeah, it's a good segue to the other point I wanted to make with this, is that each one of you has the chance to have your sort of individual expeditions on this, and to learn things about whatever your pet interests are, and to ask a bunch of people the same question. But there's also, you guys have a footprint as a group, and this idea of learning about what people's impressions are of America, as a group, you guys will be able to greatly inform that impression based upon who you meet. And so this is something we'll talk about when you guys get there in Indonesia, and in terms of thinking about conduct and how you're engaging with Jakarta as a group. But you could be thinking about things that you want to avoid as far as your behavior, that what are the stereotypes that are out there about Americans, and are you reinforcing those stereotypes with your behavior as a group, or are you demolishing them? And those it's hard, but there are such things as positive stereotypes, but most of them are negative. So that's something to consider as well, in terms of, are we feeding into a Hollywood movie, or a news conference, a Donald Trump news conference, in terms of how we're behaving as Americans? Something to think about. Okay, Grace, thanks for joining. Sorry you got to go. We are all going to get to questions and answers in 2 minutes. Let me just touch on one other thing, which is the idea of bringing this home and building mutual understanding, the third objective that we talked about. In your individual work plan sessions with me or Kathleen, we're going to talk about who it is in particular that you want to share the experience with, in your family or in your nuclear community or on campus. But I want to plant a seed that you guys will be a group of 6 from 6 different colleges or universities, from 6 different hometowns. And while we talk about the power of one and one person to make a difference, I want to encourage you now to think about how the 6 of you can construct a project or put forward a message to bring your experience back home. I think a number of you have seen this really great video that one of our Indonesia groups put together when they were there. And so there's the idea of perhaps creating a video about your different placements, of writing an essay that is co-authored by all of you and that get published in several student newspapers or several places at once. But there is this multiplier factor of it's not just Caroline's experience in Indonesia and what her lessons learned are, but when you look at this whole group and sharing this experience at this sort of very precious and sensitive moment in our current events. And I know, Paula, you're interested in storytelling through video and through photography. I mean, there's something to think about here as far as what kind of message can you guys bring home and how can you heighten its impact by all collaborating on it together. Any initial thoughts on that?
I mean, like what you said, but like through video, I think it's a great way to communicate a message and really show people what the situation is. And I think if we could all come together and like put together different segments of all of our experiences, then you get like a vast variety of things to show people back at home. So I think that's important.
Good. Isabel, any thoughts?
I think the idea of making the video that's a combined of all our experiences sounds like a really good idea, because it'll allow the audience of the video to really see everything we saw and experience it. So that sounds like a really good idea.
Okay, I'm just cognizant of the time, and I wanted to leave 10 or 15 minutes for you guys to ask any questions that you're thinking about right now, and Kathleen and I will do our best to answer them. And I will preemptively put out there that we expect to have your visa letters by the end of the week. Things don't always move as quickly as we would like. That's part of the cross-cultural beauty of all of this, but that is in the works. And Paula, we have not forgotten about your placement. We've been working on it, and we also hope to have more details for you by the end of this week in terms of what it is that you'll be doing. But our country coordinator, IU, was actually sick with dengue fever for a few weeks, and she's better now, but some of our processes took a little bit of a detour, and we had so much time that we knew that it would be okay. But don't be alarmed. We will have details to you soon about your work.
No worries. I'm fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so any questions that you guys have about anything from what should I pack to what time is it in Indonesia right now?
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay, go for it.
I was just on the train with someone who actually went to Indonesia, and I was saying to her, I was like, I don't really know what I should bring, like, in terms of, obviously there's just, the dress is completely different. Like, here, and, I'm wearing a long dress right now, but, like, I don't even know if it would be appropriate in Indonesia. Like, I'm just not really sure. And she's like, maybe you're better off just buying everything once you get there. I don't know what you guys think of that, but.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier. There are like things like Lonely Planet. It's a travel book, has great resources about what is it to wear. We have a place on our website where we have advice to travelers, it's a toolkit, where you can look at what it is that people wear in different places. I'll tell you from firsthand experience that our country coordinators for Indonesia 2 years ago, one of them was IU, who I see every time I see her walking around with a T-shirt and shorts that go to about her knee. And the other one was Nana, who wears her head covered and long sleeves and a long dress. So it's more diverse than what you might initially think in terms of how it is that people dress. I would say that you should dress professionally, when you go to your NGO or to your school. For Grace and for Caroline, the Mualamat school asks that you wear a headscarf because all of their female teachers wear headscarves, and so you should bring some headscarves with you that you're comfortable with. You can always buy some there, but And for those of you, Isabel, Paula, Isaiah, well, Isaiah and Carter don't need to bring headscarves, but for the two of you, Isabel and Paula, like, I think it's a good idea just to bring a headscarf with, that you might be in a situation at a mosque or in some case where you might want to wear a headscarf at some point. But there's no expectation that you're going to wear your head covered on a daily basis. And but I also, like, maybe you'll go to Bali, if you decide to, for a weekend or something like that. And I think wearing a tank top in Bali is totally fine. But I wouldn't wear a tank top to work, in Jogja. Kathleen, do you want to add anything on this?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I don't stress out too much about it. I feel like everybody stresses out a lot about it in the beginning, and I can send you pictures from past years if that will help, like, with a visual. Long skirts are, like, kind of trendy right now anyway, like maxi dresses and skirts. So, I mean, those are always fine. T-shirts. I think dressing like business casual at work is always a good idea, just for your own mindset of, like, separating it from the other things that you'll be doing. Don't worry too much about it, though. Just as a rule, I would not wear tank tops or shorts or things like that. That's all.
More questions?
What kind of professional clothing should we wear to our internships?
Kathleen, you want to take that one?
Sure. I think that, business casual rules would still apply. I mean, I probably wouldn't wear jeans personally. And also,
hot.
Yeah, it's too hot. And also just, I think I know for me, I can only speak for myself, but there is, like, a mindset thing. It's like I'm not out just, like, being a tourist. You're actually at work. So it's kind of good to separate those two aspects of your life. I would wear, like, nice pants and a blouse, or, like, a skirt and a nice shirt or something like that. But you don't need to dress in a suit because you would be too hot and no one else will be wearing a suit. So again, I'll send you some photos to kind of illustrate this a little bit better, because I think that business casual is, like, a vague description and kind of hard to grasp, but especially in Indonesia. But yeah, I think just, like, a nice shirt and maybe, like, loose pants or a loose skirt or something like that.
And a lot of people in Indonesia wear flip-flops, and so and they take their flip-flops off before they go inside of a room. So, I think open-toed sandals are fine, and the equivalent that, you'll want to bring closed-toed shoes for different excursions and that type of thing, but I wouldn't worry about, like, business casual or formal footwear for work.
Yeah.
More questions?
I was wondering, I follow the Jakarta on my phone, and there's always, like, a lot of rain and, like, thunderstorms, so I was, like, wondering if that's going to be happening in July, or if we need to bring jackets or anything, or, like, layers, or what do you guys think?
I think bringing, like, a light raincoat's a good idea, and also an umbrella. That's something you could easily buy there.
Okay.
But it's hot and humid, and
Yeah, so
it'll rain. We were talking about Colorado at the beginning of this call, and it's raining every afternoon in Colorado right now, and there's summer rain that happens there.
Okay, cool.
Like, what kind of excursions are we going on?
They're great. So some of the ones we've done in the past, there's two UNESCO World Heritage Sites called Borobudur and Prambaran. One of them is a Hindu temple, one of them is a Buddhist temple. They're amazing. So you guys will do trips to there. Previous groups have gone to an active volcano that's just outside of Yogyakarta. They've done batik drawing, which is the local art, in terms of you see people wearing these shirts they look floral, but they're different pattern shirts. It's like this national pattern. It's BATIK. Also, other groups have done rice planting for a day, like where they go into a rice paddy and they plant rice for a day, like half a day. get an idea of what that's like. And there's also things that you'll do, like going and visiting a local mosque. There's an LGBT madrasa that you guys would go and visit and talk with the folks there, have some dialogue with them. So there's some day-long things, and then also just like sort of cultural event types of things. Are you guys in the process of getting your vaccinations and immunizations?
Yeah.
Mine are all complete.
Good.
Me too.
Good.
I just need to get the second Japanese. I can't even say the second word.
Okay.
But I did the second one, and then I've kind of.
Good, guys. Typhoid is no joke. We had a volunteer get typhoid a couple of years ago. She got a homeopathic alternative to the vaccination. It obviously didn't work. She was really sick for a week and a half, and it was not pleasant for anybody. Please take that seriously.
Do you have any suggestions for, I mean, bug spray or bug lotion, obviously, but to avoid being bit by the mosquitoes that...
Yeah, so whenever I go, I get these DEET wipes, I think it's DEAT or DEET, and like your typical bug spray has like 5% DEET or something low in it, and like you can get like 25% or higher DEET, and they're almost like like those wipes that you would use to clean your face, but it's like you're wiping bug poison on yourself. So it's not pleasant, but malaria is an issue, and I do remember every time I'm there, I basically do one of these wipes there and in Zanzibar whenever I go out in the evening in particular, just to protect.
Is there any kind of sunscreen you recommend as well?
No, just like 50 and reapplying it. Because even when it's overcast, like you were asking about the rain before, even when it's overcast, it's still really hot. Like it's the same as, and also the sort of the proximity to the equator as well is closer than where any of you guys are in the U.S. right now. So it's sort of like an all-around heat. Paulie, you said you had lots of questions. I only count 2 so far.
Yeah. Okay. I can keep going.
All right.
So, I mean, mine are just like kind of more like logistical, I guess. But in terms of how, so we're all going to be living together in a house.
Right. So I was going to go through this, and I'll go through it in more detail in our next session on safety. But so we actually changed up the housing a little bit since the last time we talked about this. You guys are staying in somewhere between a hotel and they call it a guest house there, but it's about a 7-minute walk from the university. We thought we were going to put you in a bungalow on the university, and that option, the university discontinued that option. So this is we'll send you guys pictures of it. It's a beautiful place. It's in a safe area. A couple of you guys will be sharing a room, and a couple of you will have your own room, and we'll figure out some sort of lottery system to determine that. You guys will have breakfast there every weekday before you go to work, and that'll be available to you. We have a local caterer who's going to make you guys dinner 3 times a week and bring it to you at your guest house, and you guys will have that together. You guys will also have your Bahasa classes. The instructor will come to the guest house and do it there. You'll have your reflection sessions there. And so we'll send you the website for it, and you can see the GPS where it is on the map, and also its proximity to the university campus. And you'll also be able to use the campus for whatever it's worth. I mean, it's a nice closed campus. You guys, there's a hospital on the campus or a medical clinic. They have a couple different facilities, like student-related facilities. They don't have much of a gym, but people do go running there. People play team sports there, soccer and that kind of thing. So you can do that too. And there's some botanical gardens on the campus as well.
So like, are we pretty much like we wake up in the morning and we go to our internship and then we return back to the house and then like as a group, like are we like should we be going out together? Like I don't really know what to expect like for the afternoons. Do you recommend that it's better for us to stay in or go ahead and see the city?
I recommend doing both.
Yeah.
So as you will get dropped off at your internship in the morning. Like we have a van there's a staggered schedule. Like the folks who are teaching start off the day earlier and end earlier, and the folks who are in NGO placements start off a little bit later and finish later. So the van will do pick up and drop off of everybody, and you can create your own schedule after your workday is over. We have a buddy system where we have several Indonesian graduate students who are your buddies and help you find things and do things together, and they want to spend time with you. Recommend doing things, just not going off by yourself. Like we'll talk about that in the safety webinar. Like in terms of having a and I mean I don't mean like you can go have coffee by yourself or go have meals by yourself, but I mean like going off on excursions by yourself and not telling anybody where it is that you're going or what you're doing. Like I think that's a very bad idea. But we want you to explore. If you want to travel on the weekends, we want you to travel on the weekends with somebody and to go and find and do different things and learn more about Indonesia.
And those weekend trips like the weekends that we have available, those will be easy to plan once we're there, right? Like we should worry about it right now.
Yeah, you don't. Right, it's way too far in advance.
Yeah.
You can think about things that you're interested in doing in Indonesia, but don't worry, things aren't going to get booked up.
Okay.
This is kind of a practical question, just out of curiosity, but are we all flying into the same airport on the 15th? Like, should we look for each other when we land? Are we all like going on the same shuttle back to the in the guest house?
So Kathleen will answer the first part of that question. I'll answer the second part in that I will be there with IU or one of our buddies to meet you at the airport in Jogja and take you back to the guest house. Kathleen, do you have people's itineraries?
Yeah, I have everybody's itineraries, and as long as you followed the instructions we sent out about like what time you should get in by, then everyone will be picked up at the same time and take the same transportation back to your housing. So, and off the top of my head, I looked at everyone's itineraries and you're all fine and have followed the instructions, so you should all look for each other at the airport. But I'm not sure, I don't remember off the top of my head when exactly everyone is coming in, whether it's like 9:30 a.m. or 11 a.m., but I'll send you all of that so you can start to coordinate.
And do we have a Facebook page yet for
Not yet.
the group? Okay. So that's something else that we'll do in the next few days is connect all of you guys.
It's a
on
good
Facebook
way to start to plan all of those things.
Do you recommend that we bring like a computer or?
Yes,
Okay.
particularly because you're going to have an NGO placement and your computer is most likely going to be your workstation.
Okay.
So I would bring your computer. I would, if you have a tablet that you use instead of a computer, bring that. But smartphones as well. We'll talk about this in the next session on safety and security. So there's no end to the opportunities to ask questions. That you can be in touch with us, and we're going to do 2 more group sessions, an individual session together, and then there's always a chance to email or call or ask questions. I want to just wrap this one up right now, just being cognizant of the time and that other people have commitments that they have to get to, and give you our schedule for what's next. So sometime in the next 2 weeks, Kathleen or I will do an individual work plan session with you guys, and we'll email you individually to set up a time for those. We're going to do our taking responsibility for safety webinar on June 21st at 3 p.m. Hopefully all of you guys can make that. If you can't make that, we're going to do a makeup session the next day at noon. And so you have to be scheduled for one of those two to be a part of that webinar. And we're going to do that in conjunction with our group that's going to Zanzibar, so that we're going to mix together to talk about that. And then we're going to have on June 29th at 1 p.m., we're going to have a briefing from an Indonesia country expert. I'm working on getting someone from the embassy or from U.S.-Indonesia Society to be able to give an overview of things that are happening in Indonesia, and you'll be able to ask questions. And a number of you are doing this internship and getting credit for it. And so we're going to have our first internship class on July 6th at 1 p.m. And I'll distribute the syllabus in advance, and it's just basically going through the syllabus and talking about expectations for the class. Any last questions about that?
Your manual has all the dates in case you didn't jot those down, so just make sure that you check out those first few pages for all the webinars going forward.
Okay, so I'm really excited to start this off with you guys. Our Morocco and Tajikistan groups are there now. Kathleen just got back from Morocco.
Yeah, sorry, I was slow responding to your emails.
Things are going well, and we're really looking forward to you guys joining them and doing this great work. And for me personally, I can't wait to meet you all in Jogja at the beginning of your time there. So thank you guys, and you haven't met Carter and Isaiah yet, but they'll be joining for the next one. So that'll be your group of 6. Take care.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.